Hi, I'm Dustin Abbott, and I'm here to review a very unique lens from Sirui. This is their autofocusing 1.33x Anamorphic 40mm T1.8 lens. It was perhaps inevitable that Sirui's focus on anamorphic cine lenses and then their new shift into focusing on autofocus lenses would come together, and the result is a very fun lens. An autofocusing 1.33x constant squeeze anamorphic 40mm T1.8 cine lens. This is a lens like we really haven't ever seen before, and it reflects the fact that cameras are increasingly hybrid devices that are just as capable of capturing high-end video footage as they are in capturing great-looking stills. There has perhaps never been a more versatile tool, an easier way to get run-and-gun footage that actually has that wide letterbox cine kind of look. And so this lens is going to be a lot of fun for a lot of content creators. So is it a lens worth buying at anywhere between about $650 and $800, depending on whether you get it on sale? Well, that's what we're going to find out in today's review. Now, today's review is going to be a little bit different. Whereas I will do some traditional sections where I take a look at the build and handling and the feature set of the lens, as well as the autofocus, the image quality portion will be a little bit different. I am going to demonstrate some of the optical qualities that I look for and demonstrate that with some specific footage for that. But then I'm going to just show you a short film that we put together, taking taking run and gun footage without any additional equipment, just a camera and a lens, and splicing that together to just show you in real world scenarios how the optical qualities carry out with the lens and give you an idea of what you can create. And this is without any kind of grading or additional steps. It's just de-squeezing the footage, putting it together, and just producing what was there. So it'll give you a real idea of what the lens itself is capable of. So we're going to start by taking a look at the build and handling. This is being marketed as an S35 or an APS-C lens, though in my experience it seems to cover the full frame image circle just fine on my Sony bodies. And actually I've used it mostly in full frame form, and then only switched to the APS-C or the S35 when I wanted a different focal length. So this is a 40mm lens, which I would say is a focal length that is actually growing in popularity right now. This is actually probably a little closer to 42mm on full frame. It's a different ratio, but they're marketing it as 40mm, so that's what we'll go with here. You can switch into the 1.5x S35 crop, and you have a full frame equivalent of 60mm, which is another interesting focal length. Now, the anamorphic squeeze here is a constant 1.33 times, or that is a 2.35 to 1 ratio when you're shooting on 16:9. So if you're shooting on 16:9 format, you're going to have some of the black bars on the top and the bottom of the footage, and of course that wider cinematic look, that kind of letterbox look after doing the desqueezing. And that is a look, obviously, that's very desirable for a lot of people because people are accustomed to seeing films that are shot in that style, they automatically start to think a little bit more cinematic than just your typical 16:9 ratio that is standard with every other lens that you're shooting with on your camera. Now, the T-stop of this lens is T1.8, which means that it is moderately bright and also that it can create a fairly shallow depth of field, though again, you have to realize 40mm is not super long and f1.8 is not incredibly bright, and so the depth of field is going to be somewhat dependent on that. There are a variety of lens mount options, which include Sony E mount, I've tested here, Nikon Z mount, Fuji X mount, even Micro Four Thirds is a fourth option available out there. As befits a cine lens, both the aperture ring and the focus ring, they are geared with the standard teeth, and there is a 360-degree throw rotation for the focus ring. It does operate in a linear fashion. MSRP is going to be $799 US, but there is an early bird special that will allow you to get about $150 off that if you happen to land the deal. You can choose between two different versions of the lens. That includes a blue streak or blue flare version, which is what I tested, and then the natural warm streak versions there as well. I found that there are definitely some of the recent Aurora 85mm f1.4 design cues that are here in terms of some of the fonts and the feature set, the position of certain things. The lens itself physically is 80 millimeters in diameter or 3.1 inches. That's important because it does give you a standard matte box overall size here at the front, and so that you can mount that on there. The lens is 120 millimeters by my measurement in length, or 4.72 inches. It weighs in at a moderate 614 grams or 21.6 ounces. People that are accustomed to shooting with cine lenses are accustomed to them to being a little bit bigger and heavier, and so this lens really is moderate in size and weight. It's not really going to be an issue for anyone, I doubt. Now, there is a robust approach to aperture control in a way that you're not accustomed to seeing on cine lenses, because usually they don't have autofocus. You have the ability to both click and declick here, and so you can do the smooth racks all throughout, or you can have clicks at the 1/3 stops along the way. You also have the option here over on the left side. You can have an AF/MF switch, and then you have a function button that will allow you to program different functions there from within the camera. Now, the aperture iris itself is 11 blades, but it's not 11 rounded blades in the typical way that a stills lens would be. It does have an oval shape. In fact, when it's wide open, there's a very distinct hexagonal shape that you'll either love or hate. I'm more in the latter portion, and it turns to a more traditional oval cine look when you stop the lens down, as you can see here at f2.8. As noted, the focus throw here is 360 degrees manual focus, and so that means that it's long if you want to do major focus throws, but it gives you precision in and out of there. There is a USB-C port that is located here on the lens mount. There is also some weather sealing with a gasket and some coatings, and I believe some internal seals as well. Minimum focus distance isn't great. It's 60 centimeters, which gives you a very low magnification level, and it isn't hard, as you can see here, to get inside that minimum focus distance. If I started with that, the decorative ball hanging on the tree, and you can see I don't have to move too close before I'm completely past minimum focus on that, and so not a high degree of magnification. On a positive note, however, it does come with a nice case, and for the money, this is a very nice lens. It's nicely made, it handles well, it is a great package for the money. Now, on the autofocus side of things, it is equipped with an STM or a stepping focus motor. Again, probably similar to what we saw in the recent Aurora 85mm f1.4. In my focus pulls test, overall, I saw good results there. There's smooth and confident transitions from one focus point to another, from A to B. I felt like it was pretty well damped, which is important in a lens like this, so it still has a cinematic feel to it, though probably, again, doing a manual pull is going to give you the most cinematic feel to it. But in this situation, because it's a long focus throw, you can actually get a pretty well damped pull from one to another. Hand test also went well, and you can see that it transitioned from my hand to my eye good. I found that it was improved after a firmware update, and so that just stabilized autofocus a little bit more. You may have noticed that there is some focus breathing there. It's not super high, but there's enough there that I did notice it in some of my shots, and so just be aware of that. I'll reserve some of the other focus observations for when I show you the short film in just a few minutes, and we'll dive into that in the image quality section. So, as noted, I found that this lens really basically covered the full frame image circle. There is a little bit of heavier vignette in the corners that is really kind of due to mechanical vignette, but it's not true mechanical vignette, and you can correct for it. And it's just very minimal there in the corners, and what I found is that in less extreme situations where you don't have like snow in the corners, I really didn't notice it in overall footage. In fact, I'd kind of forgotten that this even was being marketed as an S35 lens, because it very naturally just shot in full frame on either my A7R5 or Alpha 1. And I found that even when I shot stills and I dived into the corners, I found that it's resolving all the way into the corners, except for maybe like the last 1% or so. And while there is some pretty obvious lateral chromatic aberrations there, for stills they're pretty easily correctable, and frankly I didn't really notice them as much for video work. And so not really any kind of major problem. In terms of the normal fringing, I didn't find that fringing was really all that pronounced as well. I also found that relative to the 35mm 1.66 times anamorphic lens from Sirui that I tested a year and a half or so ago, I found that lens had a lot of distortion. I didn't really see any distortion with this lens, so that's great. Nothing more really to correct there. This is the blue streak version that I'm testing, and so you can see there definitely is some flare from this lens. Some of that is intentional. It is the streaking that is desirable for kind of cine look or music videos, that type of thing. But there's also some other flare patterns there. The coatings don't exempt it from flaring, and so that is something you're going to work out. We're now going to dive into a short film that we put together over the holidays and just kind of documenting a day with family. And so I'll talk to you about a few more of the optical and autofocus properties as a part of that, just to show you kind of the real thing. Now, one of the things that you will see from this footage, in my opinion, Sirui's optical glass, it's not top class. This is not a Zeiss lens, but I think that the footage overall looks good. It has a very cinematic feel to it, and even without grading, as we have done here, you'll find that the overall footage looks good. The bokeh has a very unique signature, as we previously mentioned. I don't personally love it for specular highlights, but in some of these other shots where there's shallow depth of field, I think that the quality of the bokeh looks otherwise good. And it's relatively soft and smooth, and while it doesn't completely blur out backgrounds, what's there looks pretty decent. I found that the sharpness was good enough that we shot not exclusively at f1.8, but we shot significantly at f1.8, and we got really good results, great looking footage. In real world use, I found that actual color fringing was fairly low. I did see in some of the shots, I saw a little bit of fringing sometimes around the window panes. There'll be a little bit of a blue-green look there, but really it was only there because I was looking for it. And the truth of the matter is that I see a lot more fringing than that in similar situations in a lot of very mainstream professional shows or movies. And so I wouldn't consider that to be any kind of real negative quality. Overall, as you can see, you're just able to produce really engaging looking footage that does have a very cinematic feel to it, which leads me to my conclusion. A lot of this footage was shot by my nephew, Matt Ansley from Ansley Creative, and he was able to just pick up the camera. I showed him, I said, look what I've got. He grabbed it and he started shooting, and he was able to get all the footage that's shown in this short film just from a few hours of casual shooting. And that really shows the strength of this particular lens. Never before has there been an option to get this kind of footage with just a camera and a lens. You don't have to have any kind of focus follow equipment, and based on the fact that most modern cameras have in-body image stabilization, there was no stabilization equipment being used here, just a camera and a lens, and yet you could put together something with relatively little work that comes across as being a credible little short film here. And obviously, if we were shooting with more dynamic, lighting and atmospheric conditions, you could produce something that would be even more movie-like in its overall performance. The price is reasonable, and if you don't mind doing a little bit of post-work to de-squeeze your footage, I would say that pretty much anyone can get very cinematic video. And if you don't know how to de-squeeze footage, there's a lot of tutorials out there that will tell you how to do it pretty simply. I suspect that this probably won't be the last lens of its kind, probably not even the last that we'll see from Sirui, because I think that there certainly is a market of people that are interested in doing cine work and are interested in an anamorphic style look, but they're not really ready to invest in all kinds of equipment to do manual focus pulls and to do focus follow and things like that. And so this really enables even amateurs to pick it up, run with it, and have a lot of fun and get some great footage in the process. And for that reason, I think that there are going to be a lot of people that are interested in Sirui's new anamorphic autofocusing 1.33 times 40mm T1.8 lens. If you want more information, you can look at my full text review that is linked in the description down below. There's some buying links there as well if you'd like to purchase one for yourself. As always, thanks for watching. Have a great day, and let the light in.